Yeah, I think the hardest bit is knowing where to start. Do we speak to children about bullying before it happens? Or in my case, it was very much reactive. It was like, okay, we think you are being bullied in a sense, or starting to be bullied. And again, it's really important to know what bullying is, because that in itself can be quite tricky. Is it something that's happened once? Is it a repetitive thing? It can be really difficult for a child to understand. I mean, I'm really lucky that we have really good open conversations at home, and we've always encouraged that dialogue, and to say, if it's something is making you feel sad or worried or even happy, tell someone about it, and share the load, and we can figure it out.
And I would certainly agree with that. It's about that initial conversation and not scaring the child and not using those scary words, but having an open conversation so that they feel like they can come to you. And for you, David, how have you had to have those conversations, or have you had any worries about talking to children in relation to bullying behaviours or bullying worries?
Very much so. My daughter is 12 and has just started secondary school. So that was the only thing that I was thinking about when she started school. How's she going to get on with everybody? I mean, obviously you worry about the workload and homework and those sort of things, but really relationships with others. And is she going to be picked on? Is she going to be able to make friends? That was something that I was really, really concerned about. And how you broach that subject is really difficult. You don't want to make it high stakes and go, right, family meeting, let's sit down at the table, let's have this really big conversation. So I found that talking about others and those sort of things while we're doing other activities, like she loves to draw. So she'd be sitting down drawing and I go and sit next to her and we would just go, oh, what are you drawing? And we'd have a little conversation. Or the best one is car journeys. Because you're not looking at each other. Definitely. Things are happening out the window and you just open up and it's really low stakes. Those sort of things really, really help.
And Laura, you talked about your child and you talked about some concerns about bullying. How did you respond to that with the school? When you had that conversation and you were aware, what was your next step?
Our bullying situation actually started online, and initially we actually dealt with it ourselves at home. And one of the things was sort of removing the gaming platform. The funny thing with bullying is that it then moves into the classroom when that bully doesn't potentially have the right avenue. So that totally threw me, to be honest. And then that is when I needed to seek help and advice from the school. If you go charging in, you're not sort of getting to the point and the root of the problem. You're absolutely not being a role model necessarily to your child, because it can be an overreaction. It can also be quite scary if you haven't sort of gained their permission, or at least just explain to them what you're going to do. I went in very calmly, very honestly. I booked an appointment. I had everything sort of laid out in front of me. I had, whatever evidence I had, but that was my first steps. It was going to the school and just explaining calmly that we have a bit of a situation. I've partially dealt with it, but that we actually need a bit more assistance, because in order to make my child feel safe and happy at school, the school also need to take some responsibility for what is happening. And that's how I started it. And it was quite scary, to be honest, not having done it before.
No school would want bullying to happen, and no school would want a child to be upset. Every teacher in every school should be there for the education and welfare of a child. And it's about maintaining that relationship with school. Every school will have a behaviour policy, and within that there will be a bullying action plan or a bullying statement, or even potentially a bullying policy on its own. For you, David, has that been something that you've experienced, especially as you've got a child now at secondary school, having that independence? How has that impacted their relationships and the worries you've had?
Yeah, the online world is difficult because although it's not new, there are new things all the time that I genuinely just don't understand. Because I don't have, the social media wasn't there when I was growing up as a teenager. If I shut the door, no one could talk to me. Do you know what I mean? But now the contact is constant all the time. And that question of when did we decide to give my daughter a mobile phone and access to this online world and whatever was a really difficult question. We eventually did it when she started to walk to and from school as a safety sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's just about being really open and honest and say, look, we're going to give you this, but these are the dangers about it, without scaring anyone about it, but this is what might happen. You need to make sure that you're open and honest with us, and we're not checking up on you, we're just keeping you safe. and being really honest about it. But it is a huge issue and really difficult to tackle.